Well, it is about the time on the calendar when New Year's resolutions start to fade.
Ooh.
Or they burst into flames, and our intentions are no longer lined up with our
Mm.
actions. And this is why the very first email I sent to my BossBetter email subscribers was about not making a New Year's resolution
Okay,
because
do
we know they
tell.
don't work.
Hmm.
Have you ever made a New Year? Did you make a New Year's resolution this year?
No, I did not. I've
Okay.
learned my lesson. I don't do that anymore.
Okay. And why not?
Because I have found for myself that New Year's resolutions imply that I have to have some sort of motivation. There's a motivation start point, so to speak, an initiation of that motivation. And that does not translate well in my life because then every day leading up to that is just the exact opposite, right? Because I
uh,
better get it in before have to get to this point. So rather than trying to think about it as a resolution or a specific moment in time in which I have to have this motivation,
mm-hmm.
I have tried to think of it as a continuum of of
Mm.
momentum over motivation. And so resolutions don't really align with that whole thing of momentum for
That's
me.
right. That's right. And because the deciding that we're going to increase this or decrease that or do more or less of something, uh, it's an idea that's not tied enough to habits. That's what we understand about how change happens in people. That it takes the creation of new habits. A habit is a regular tendency or practice. One that is hard to give up,
Yeah.
and so we sometimes fail to translate our resolutions into habits. And so that first email that I sent to our Boss Better email subscribers was about saying, hey, don't make a resolution. Instead, let's think about the new habits that we want to adopt. And there was one habit in particular that I encouraged them to adopt and that I wanted to talk about today.
Ooh, do tell.
And well, the habit is called the Monday 20.
Hmm.
And the
Okay, I haven't
idea
heard of it.
here is quite simple. It's that every Monday you take 20 minutes to do something that makes you a better boss for those you lead. And maybe you spend 20 minutes talking with a coach or a colleague about a situation that you're facing. Maybe you spend 20 minutes reading a leadership book or, I don't know, listening to a podcast.
Plug, plug.
Plug, right? There's so many things you can do with that time. You use that time to write a heartfelt note of appreciation to an employee. You take 20 minutes and do a set of rounds to connect one-on-one with people where they work. You pull out your journal and you write for a few minutes about your leadership intentions for the week ahead.
Mm.
So I call it the Monday 20. Do you do anything like this, Alyssa?
I um I love me some habits, just like I love me some values. I love me some habits. And I actually is part of the core work that I do with each of my coaching clients, which is to support authentically led actions of values. We name the habits
Mm-hmm.
that support those actions of authenticity. So, for me personally, how I apply this is habits that serve. They serve me,
Mm.
right? That's the primary objective of those core habits that I have developed for myself. Um, and so, the first things, I'm going to get real specific. The first things that I do in the morning is I get up early because that's the only time that I get truly that time to serve the habits that serve me. So I
Mm.
have to exercise in the morning before my kiddo gets up, right? Before my time is anyone else's, I have to claim it as mine. So in that time, I exercise, I do my, self-care, and then I do some meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and then I do writing and reading. And the body of work that I love most surrounding habits, what I have found most meaningful for me in applying this to my life is my habit specific to writing.
Hmm.
James Clear wrote this book, Atomic
Yeah.
Habits. It's amazing, right? And in it, I what stuck with me is this one sole phrase of inhabiting your habits. So I no longer say I'm going to spend, 15, 20 minutes writing in a journal. I don't do journals. I'm
Hmm.
not a journal person. I am a writer. I inhabit the habit
Ah.
of a writer. Therefore, I write daily. And that, when I can think of it as it's who I am, it's part of my identity, then it is no longer unchained or unconnected to me. There's
Hmm.
not the availability of it to be anything but who I am at my core.
I love it. And you lay down in such a beautiful and convicted kind of way that this is an unbreakable thing for you. This is an unbreakable commitment. How much time does it take you? Because you rattled off a pretty good list there of some things that you try to get to every morning.
Yeah.
Do you mind me asking how much time it takes you to complete your habits?
So people are going to laugh and go like, "Oh, that lady is a nutso." But it takes 2 hours, and that includes a shower and all that fun jazzola. But I wake up at 4:30.
Mm-hmm.
So from 4:30 to 6:30, I am exercising, cleaning myself up for the day, putting my face on, which really doesn't really mean anything nowadays. But but then I am meditating, whether that's saying a mantra over in my head, whether that's just listening to, a meditation or meditative music. I do that for 10 to 15 minutes. Then I am writing
Mm-hmm.
again, 10 to 15 minutes. That's my writing habit. And then I'm reading
Mm-hmm.
until I am forced to not be allowed to be in my book anymore.
When another human enters the picture from the
when
family
when
unit.
I hear the door crack, I mean, it is like the sound that broke time.
Good feelings gone.
Yes. Boom, boom, boom.
Well, so here's something that I'd love to get your reaction to. I remember having a conversation about habits, especially as they relate to food and exercise,
Mm.
with a speaker friend of mine who said to me, he's a CrossFit coach. He said, "Your
Okay.
feelings will lie to you." He
Mm.
said, "Our feelings lie to us. We never. The idea was we never feel like getting up at 4:30 in the morning. We never feel like exercising. We never feel like taking the time to do some of the things that you have committed to in the mornings." And so we're sort of constantly negotiating with ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of, well, I got to talk myself into wanting to get on that exercise bike or go do my yoga or just not hit the snooze button.
Mm-hmm.
How have you not let yourself off the hook? How have you not given yourself permission to say, well, I've done the 4:30 to 6:30 thing for a month, and maybe I could take a day off? How
Yeah.
have you maintained that commitment that it takes to sustain a habit?
I think in large part, two reasons. Number one, it is I know what it feels like in my body, not just my feeling emotional. I know what it feels like in my body if I don't do those
Yeah.
things, right? And it is I get angrier quicker.
Mm-hmm.
It is the negative self-talk starts way sooner in the day, and it gets a lot louder in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my ability to serve others completely hinges on my ability to serve me first.
Yes.
I feel that in my bones, and I have written about it to myself, and I continually go back to that and to remind myself, okay, even though I might not quote feel like it, right? This is what I'm committed to doing. The second, you know, way in which I am compelled to continue to serve those habits is that I see in my clients exactly what happens. That negotiation you talk about,
Mm-hmm.
we put ourselves at the very end of that priority list.
Mm-hmm.
And so we think, well, I'll just do this instead. That'll be better for them. Or we somehow negotiate with ourselves to make it less of a priority
Yes.
to do those things that we know will serve us because we think that we're serving someone else better or more efficiently, or that it's uh, more courageous or more compassionate to serve someone else other than yourself. And I would
Absolutely.
add, not just serve someone else, but serve someone else first. And that's where we have to kind of change the entire dynamic is we have to make serving yourself first not feel so ugly and so selfish and so shameful and guilt filled. Get off that train of thought, right? Because that's what's going to lie to you every day. That guilt, that shame, that selfishness, that's the lie that you keep telling yourself.
And the truth to counteract it is what you said moments ago, which is my ability to serve others, to be at my best every day, depends on me setting aside this time and keeping this commitment. It's
Yeah.
funny. I've always said I am much likelier to break an appointment with myself than I am with someone else. So when I would make an appointment with myself to do exercise or even just take a walk, uh, it's easy to set that aside when certain things on the to-do list aren't done.
Yep.
And you know this in quarantine and from March and into the summer, I used that time to try to pursue, after years of struggle, some changes relative to my weight and my overall health. And I was able to make better progress on that than I ever have before. I lost 46 pounds and really got down to the healthiest shape that I have been in really in my adult life. And one of the things that became clear to me, and I still struggle with this, but it's clear as day to me, is that for me, activity, whether you want to call it exercise or just moving my rear end, is my therapy. It is my medication. I am a better husband, father, business owner, writer, speaker, friend, housekeeper, doer of laundry when I create the space early in the day to do that activity, because I get all those good brain chemicals, right? You can go down the science path, which is that I produce some reactions in my biology that make me more resilient. And that's what you described earlier, is that when we commit to the habits that favor ourselves, we are able to better serve others. And when the others we serve challenge us, push us, call on our patience, call on our resilience, it's going to be there in a greater depth than it otherwise would have been had we not shown up for ourselves with our habits.
And that is the perfect parallel to how you boss better.
Right. I thought we were going to talk about the Monday 20, but we were talking about the reason to embrace habits. And it's such a precursor to this conversation because, and I tell organizations this all the time, I get calls to do training and development work with them to help grow leaders, to help staffs and teams overcome various obstacles. And most of the time, what I am doing with them is being an accountability mechanism for the setting aside of time, right? If I work with an organization for a few months or a year, we are setting aside time to pull people together and work on XYZ. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Almost everybody listening to this doesn't need me to do that. The greatest resource that we can devote to getting better at something, whether it's being a leader or being a parent or being a father, being a partner, is time. It's the setting aside of that time. So when I float the idea of the Monday 20, what I'm asking folks to do is to make a commitment to a chunk of time that is devoted to a specific set of practices. That set of practices is about becoming a better boss. And there are so many different ways you can use that time, but it has to become an unbreakable commitment. Otherwise, it's just a New Year's resolution that fades away in a couple of weeks.
Yep, absolutely. Powerfully said, Joe. Powerfully said.
So as you think about leaders taking 20 minutes each week to do something that would make them a better boss, what other kinds of ideas pop into mind for you, Alyssa, about ways they could spend that time?
So, a lot of the things that I think of, I'm going to translate from my own personal habits that I think serve me. So, in terms of how that applies, how does exercise apply in the workplace, right? Okay. So, the first thing would be is I think that number one, a healthy you is a healthier you everywhere in all of the arenas that you live in. But if I translate that literally, it could mean that 10 minutes, if you're able to be amongst other humans right now, and not via a screen, mask up and go around and smile with your eyes and say hello, good morning, how you doing? How's it been? How was your weekend? Make the connection. Physically go out and move
Yes.
your body towards people, towards your team.
Be
Okay?
seen.
Be seen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Um, then I might think of, okay, well, what translates into my habit of meditation? Well, you could still do that, within your own office, maybe you ask some people to join you. You put on
Mm.
some, you know, meditative music or, a guided meditation and you do it as a team. I mean, who's not going to serve? That's going to be good stuff. Um, the other thing that I think of is, okay, so my writing habit, I'm a writer. So I would translate that in the workplace to, as you said, journaling, putting your, I think, I might coach it up a bit there and say, what is your intention
Mm-hmm.
for the week? What kind of tone do you want to say? We're setting the tone on Monday. Okay. So, what is the intention that you want to go into this week's activities, this week's meetings with? How do you want to hold yourself for that intention? Meaning, I just want to make sure that everyone on my team knows how much I care for them, how grateful that I am for them, right? That translates into an intention, and holding that intention for yourself, writing it down is a powerful exercise.
And that is inhabiting the habit. Because if you say, I'm going to be the kind of leader who slows down and wants to be seen, then what are the subsequent behaviors that you're making time for? If you're going to be the kind of leader who says, it is part of my job to be concerned with the quality of the relationships between people in the workplace. I have to be concerned with teamwork. I have to be concerned with camaraderie. I have to be concerned with conflict and how people interact. That is I want to inhabit that habit of being that kind of leader. So what does that mean in terms of the commitments you need to make in your schedule and in your routines?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, fantastic. And so I'm going to encourage everyone listening to take a moment today, go to your calendar and block 20 minutes for next Monday, and then set it up as one of those recurring appointments. And, life happens. There are fires that need to be put out at work. And so I give you permission to move it around from week to week if it needs to be moved around. But make it an unbreakable commitment that no matter what, you're going to set aside that 20 minutes on Mondays, the Monday 20, to do something that makes you a better boss for your team. Even if it means staying up an extra 20 minutes at night before you go to bed that night to fit it in. That is a habit, and that is how we get better.